Good morning, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. First of all, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the new CRU strategy. So we've been working on our strategy for some time. We published an update recently, and I think along with so many of the speakers earlier today, we've really, I suppose, tapped into that sense that the tide is now turning on climate change. It's no longer just a few lone voices out there advocating for action. It is now, I suppose, mainstream, and as a regulator who is, I suppose, charged with protecting the interests of the public and consumers in the energy and water areas, it was just so clear to us that we need to take a step forward as well, to take on that leadership challenge and to deliver more in terms of climate action, but not alone, because so many others are with us on that journey. And that will be a clear focus of the work that we're undertaking in the next 3 years of our strategy, but towards 2030 as well. And I think along with maybe others here, we attended an event in Croke Park some weeks ago hosted by Minister Bruton. And there was a really tangible sense of, I suppose, momentum gathering around a minister who seems really determined to make change happen, to make it happen quickly, and to deliver a level of ambition around that we can all get behind. And we may have to swallow a little and think, goodness, how do we do this? But I think there's a real sense, if we all work together, that there really is incredible potential for Ireland to stop being a laggard and maybe to take a leadership role. And I think from our perspective as an energy regulator, it was interesting to hear Minister Bruton say, you know, amidst all of the change that needs to happen, the Exchequer can't pay for all of this. And I think that's where economic regulation really comes into its own. And the three areas that I see as opportunities, that we see as opportunities for 2030, really sit in the regulatory space. So the areas I'm going to talk about are empowering and engaging energy consumers, transforming networks, and using market design as a catalyst for change. So if as the energy or the wind energy industry, you're thinking the regulator has completely changed its stripes and that we're going to be open to all the lobbying more than we have been in the past, I suppose the first thing I should say is we see the customer and the public interest very much at the heart of this. So, and the two can be aligned, which is great. But what we're looking for is how do we help customers to benefit from the transition to a low carbon future rather than simply paying for it all? How do we give them the kinds of choices and options that they can use to cut their own costs, to play a role in climate change and to make the changes that they're comfortable with? So the first step is obviously the smart metering program, which Paddy is working on. And I think, Gary, you know, you talk about data and what will it do. There's a lot of elements to data, but I suppose one of the first things we see is the power of data in the energy sector to actually transform how customers engage with energy, use energy, and the kinds of choices that they're given. So it can be as simple as, you know, the kinds of things that our parents and grandparents were so good at, you know, turning off the immersion because you know it's on, because you've got a smart home technology, or timing it rather than having to turn it on and off, moving your consumption, running the dishwasher after 7 o'clock. But it could actually be completely different. It could be using smart home technology to charge your car at the right time, to sell what's left in your battery into the grid at peak and then charge at low cost times. And I think the challenge for Paddy and his team, having, I suppose, had the opportunity of learning from the e-cars infrastructure, is how does the network operator understand how to do that? So that Paddy and his team have a different challenge in the future. It's not just about building lots more infrastructure and kit. It's about maybe buying services. It's about incentivizing customers to use smart charging. So there's different ways of delivering for customers. And when Mark Foley talked about grids being unrecognisable in the future, I agree, and I think we've probably focused on air grid a bit. I think with the clean energy package coming in, with smart metering coming in, there's real opportunity now for Paddy and his team to become, I suppose, a real catalyst for change and to deliver change in that way. I think we also have to engage with communities, because we often think about, the resistance to infrastructure, the resistance to change. But actually, when you look at energy consumers, you've got this fabulous cohort of people who are having discussions about what kinds of changes they're open to, what they want to do, how they want to contribute. So we need to find ways to engage better with them. And I think when we talk about transforming networks as well, we're looking at, obviously, there's a lot of focus on the ECP, or Enduring Connection Policy, which we will be aligning with policy, aligning with RES. And of course, we see the opportunity for very large-scale offshore wind to play a part in what we think will be much more ambitious renewable targets. But we also have to remember what is the opportunity to bring communities with us and find a way of carving out opportunities for community schemes to connect to the grid as well. And I think a big part of that will be the challenge of identifying or coming to an agreement on, well, what is a community, so that suddenly not every single wind farm development in Ireland becomes a community scheme and that phrase loses all meaning. But actually we're tapping into that real desire of communities to play a part and to positively engage around climate change and to deliver infrastructure that they can live with. And I think another element of that is actually around the gas infrastructure, because we talk a lot about electrification of heating and transport and the opportunities there, but we can't electrify everything, and we have another network that actually can deliver. We're starting to bring biogas into that network, and when we start thinking about the future, the types of future role of gas that is being considered at the EU level and in many other member states now, the opportunity, for example, power to gas creates completely new challenges for us, but completely new opportunities. For example, it may be very difficult for us to deliver major new electricity grid infrastructure to the west of Ireland, where we have huge wind capabilities. But imagine if we can take that offshore and onshore capability, using power to gas technology in 2030, and then use the gas network to bring it into other demand centres. That is making the best use of existing infrastructure. And I think if we can show customers and citizens that we're really thinking about these things, then they may be more open to looking at the infrastructure that we are trying to present to them as being absolutely necessary, because they see we're really trying to optimise the rest of the infrastructure that's there. So then turning to the market-based approaches, I suppose we have, as Mark mentioned earlier, just implemented the new SEM market design, and I'd echo his words of thanks to the industry that worked with us to deliver that successfully. And I do appreciate that it has presented challenges. The balancing market has probably been more exciting than we thought it would be in the initial phases, but we think there's solutions there. But now we're starting to see the power of markets to deliver change. So part of the redesign of SEM was to carve out part of the revenue streams into DS3. So every year, 235 million euros will be spent. Instead of just paying large-scale generators to sit there and be available, it's paying for those generators and other completely different service providers to actually provide the services that customers need to enable more wind to come onto the grid, to lower prices. So we can see that effectively designed markets really play a part, and that's the approach that's being taken around RES, and the challenge for us all now to actually integrate those markets so they make sense, so that everything's lined up. Generators understand what their revenue streams will be. They can bid in to RES at the lowest possible cost, and we've lined up our connection policy with the RES auctions so that there's a route to actually connect to the grid as well as bidding into the market. So I see huge potential for 2030. I think Ireland has unique opportunities, and I believe that there is a real momentum now around actually delivering on that potential. I think the final word I'd say today on the day that's in it, particularly when I talk about the power of market design to deliver, that it is our vision that market design will continue to be on an all-island basis, working in partnership with the utility regulator in Northern Ireland and with the industry north and south of the border, because we've seen that the all-island market doesn't just deliver additional scale and ability to solve problems, it also delivers delivers on the promise of the Good Friday Agreement, and when we think about the future generations and what we want to offer them on this island, peace, prosperity and the low carbon future are all part of that vision. So thank you very much.